Let's go ahead and start with the prayer. Would you mind starting with the prayer?
Eternal King of glory, we worship you before your holy name. Parents, be able to look into your words, Lord, let our minds are open to receive all that you have for us today. At the end of today, we have us to go further. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. So we've done the first 3 sessions of this tactics book, and it's what he calls the Columbo tactic, which is just built on that old 70s TV program where the detective would ask questions. And what was the first question we learned? What do you mean by that? Which is a clarification question. When someone asks, it makes a claim about something, it's a good idea to make sure you understand what they mean by that claim. And then when they assert it with evidence, what's your second question?
How'd you come to that conclusion?
How'd you come to that conclusion based on what you just shared with me? And then in the third part, what we started last week is the idea of introducing them to alternatives via questions. And there's both an aggressive method and a non-aggressive way of doing this. But the idea is to lead them down a path using questions where they give you the information that you want them to tell you that proves your point. And the idea is if they make the assertion, you can walk down the path, so they've given you everything you need to make your point, but they've actually made it for you. It does have the danger of being very manipulative. So our objective always has to be to search for truth. But the key in what he calls the third Columbo tactic is you ask questions that you know the answers to already. And that's the important part, is you're asking a question that you know what the answer should be. And if you don't get what you expect, then you need to try to redirect that to address it at each step. So we also learned a little bit about the fact that we're going to run into people that know more than we do. And when they know more than we do, accept the fact that they know more than we do and allow them to educate us. And then tell them, let me think about it. And then we can talk about it another time. Even if you don't think you'll ever run into that person again, don't be afraid to acquire their information and then go figure it out for yourself for the next conversation, whether it's with them or with somebody else. And then the last and probably most important thing that we've been learning is burden of proof is held by the person that makes the claim. So if someone makes a claim, you don't have to try to defend your beliefs.
Or you don't have to prove them wrong.
You don't have to prove them wrong. They have to prove their claim. And so we don't have to be so quick to get defensive, and we don't have to be so quick to try to show counter evidence. Let them build their case, ask questions in such a way that if you know they have false claims, you show that it is circular logic, or it violates the law of non-contradiction, or whatever that thing is, but you use it through questions and allow them to reveal it to themselves. Not everybody will do that, but a vast majority of people are actually reasonable. But there are going to be unreasonable people, and those are the ones where you just end the conversation and move on.
Unreasonable.
You can't reason with unreasonable people, right? So there's no point in even trying. So we left off last week, we went through some questions that he posed. And I think it's worth looking at those again and looking at what his answers were to them. So the first question that he posed was, if someone tells you, you shouldn't push your morality on me, or some variation of that, how would you address that? Section F, Connie, if you're on page 58.
Why not?
He talks about it afterwards. I said, I would say, how did I do that?
Yeah. Well, effectively, that's what you're doing. It's like, what did I do that made you perceive
What they say.
that I was pushing my morality on you? What did I say?
Yeah.
So what he said, now actually, obviously his answers are better than mine because he's thought about it. He says, you can ask why not.
Why not?
Yeah.
And the thing is, why shouldn't I push my morality on somebody else? I believe it's morally right.
Of course, I'm
And
gonna endorse
obviously
it.
I'm going to
I'm gonna
push
endorse
that
it.
on you.
Because I believe it.
I can't push somebody else's morality on you. So the question is, why not? It is going to be hard for them to answer that without
that's true.
contradicting themselves.
'Cause they're
Because
doing
to
it
question your
themselves.
morality, they have to say that they're actually pushing their
Pushing
morality
their
on you.
morality on you at the same time.
So his suggestion was to push back and say, why not?
Why not?
Well, what's wrong with pushing your morality on somebody? If you believe it and it's moral, well, you should
What?
want to push that on somebody.
That's true.
Yeah.
They're gonna be like, they won't
expect
they will
that.
not expect that answer.
No, because
They will
it's
not.
very confrontational. But it's confrontational in a positive way
Yeah,
because
you're not
morality
trying to fight.
morality is important.
Yeah, it's by definition, it's moral. It's the right thing to do.
Uh-huh.
So if I hold that this is the right thing to do, of course I'm gonna endorse it.
Yeah.
I
So
guess you could say so. Do you think you're trying to push your morality on me?
exactly. Well, in fact, they are.
Is there-
If they question your morality, they're by definition pushing theirs on you.
That's true. That's
Hey guys.
why not question is confrontational, but it's not very. It's not that aggressive because that is aggressive.
Well,
That is aggressive because you shouldn't push your morality on me. That's very upfront, like attack on you.
oh, it is. And the thing is,
That.
it's already an aggressive
Yeah.
statement because they're challenging your freedom to share your opinion. It's really what they're doing. But they're freely sharing their opinion with you. So I think to challenge that and make them recognize that you just accused me of doing exactly what you
What you
just
did.
did.
Well, okay, what about if you ask that and why not? Then I'm pretty sure I have a coworker that would say like, I don't agree with the way I don't agree with your version of morality. That's why. I don't want
So?
you.
So the follow up would be then, aren't you trying to push your version of morality on me?
on me?
I mean, you have to actually push it because it's confrontational, but it's true. She doesn't agree with me, so she doesn't want to hear what I have to say, but
But
She's telling me to shut up.
that's pushing her version of morality on you.
So shut up because I don't like it.
yeah,
Go ahead, Alfred, you had something?
No, I want, so you should accept that question. Right?
Yeah,
You should accept it.
yeah. Yeah, so I think challenging what they...
No, I've heard this question.
why should I accept
Throw it
your
away.
morality?
Yeah.
No, he's right. I mean, why should I accept what you have to say version of what I'm going to say? The only reason I'm sharing my morality is I believe it is right.
Yeah,
And if you believe something is right, you should want to share it with others. That's actually a proper thing to do.
Well,
Yeah.
what about if you say like, I don't agree with that
Why not?
you can.
because I don't like your version.
What about my version don't you like? Yeah. But that's the thing is I think you can keep asking those questions which are semi-aggressive, but it's like, what is the problem you have with what I'm saying? That's really what you're
Yeah,
trying to get out of them.
Yeah, 'cause-
Because again, we're
trying to dig more information on because it's not just what you say that's like there's something deeper there that's like
Typically-
trying to them to
typically
shut
this-
you up.
I've heard this question before. We're talking about like abortions.
Yeah, because
So
there's
the
probably
problem is the
more
abortion.
under there.
And then they will throw this word like you shouldn't push your morality on me.
Well, change morality a little bit. Couldn't you say, aren't you trying to make your point just like I'm trying to make my point? That's
Yeah.
kind of what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
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 well, actually, what they're doing is they're disagreeing with your point, and they're wanting you just to stop.
And so they throw in the morality.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
that's going to make you stop.
And the gate thing, like
Well, all of these questions, these five, I think there's five or six of them that we're going to go through, these are end of conversation statements. You've said something, and they don't have a response,
and they
so they
just
want
want-
to end the conversation.
Yeah.
But they
just
want
wanna
to
shut
they
up.
want to have the moral high ground, so they're going to make one of these statements like, you know, you shouldn't do this. Well, who are you to tell me what I should and should not do? So the question is, I think it's in the best interest of the person that's challenging you to drill down a couple layers, to try to have them reconcile what it is they really have trouble with.
I've actually heard this a lot on like all those pride parades, and then like pastors or some Christian guy would go there to kind of preach the gospel and stuff like that, and they would get this question a lot.
Well, the second one's the one they get a lot, actually, especially in those circumstances, is the intolerance and arrogance thing. You know, you think you know better than us. You're so intolerant. And it kind of, they go together because they're all, you can imagine all kinds of conversations where they're going to use either one of these to stop. So what do? You're intolerant. You're arrogant.
How am I intolerant?
How am I intolerant?
Do you think you're intolerant by accusing me?
Well, that's more direct. But I think the idea is,
Because what's the answer to how am I intolerant? If they say you don't take us at me, aren't you doing the same thing?
well, and I think for me at least, I want to know what I've done
Yeah.
that you view as arrogant and intolerant. And rarely are they going to have any specifics, right? These are just slogans.
Yeah. These are.
So this is what Coco said about this one. So when they make this assertion against you, what do you mean by that? Is what he would start with.
What do you mean
Right?
by intolerant?
Because what do they mean by intolerant, and what do they mean by arrogance? Because one thing I've learned recently in conversations is you can use the same words, but we don't always have the same definition. I actually used the word ecumenical, which used to mean just interdenominational council. Well, it's been hijacked in today's world. It now means progressive liberal Christianity. Universalism.
It does.
It does.
Yeah, it's been hijacked.
Pastor
so
Irv
it's
corrected
like-
me.
No, I know that.
I didn't know that.
Because like I remember when Billy Graham was like his olden days, when he's saying crazy stuff, he said like there's all this path leads to Jesus. The Muslims and they were all just having different paths. And he was accused with being
Universal.
ecumenical.
Well, the crazy thing,
They use that for
ecumenical
that.
used to be interdenominational Christian. Now it's all religion, universalism, and I don't know how that happened. Someone hijacked the term. So you got to be careful and make sure we both understand the term the same way when we're having a conversation. So what do you mean by that is a really powerful question and a necessary question.
Yeah, so you
Because
really drill down.
What do you really mean by intolerance?
What's your
What do you
issue?
really mean by
What's your
arrogance?
issue?
Because I would not define my behavior that way, so I need to understand why you're defining it that way, and then we can have a conversation. He goes on a little bit with this, and asking this question kind of fleshes out what their definition of intolerance and arrogance is, exposing what I call the passive-aggressive tolerance trick. They're being intolerant, right, by asking the question. They're actually being arrogant, thinking they know better than you, by calling you arrogant. So we know that they are actually showing the behavior they're claiming that you are by confronting you like this. And this is a way that he would go about it. He says, so you're intolerant and arrogant. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, you think you're right, and everyone who disagrees with you is wrong. Well, tell me, do you think your own view is right? Of course he does. That's why that's the reason he just told you.
You think my view is wrong?
So Coco's final comeback would be something like this. So help me out here. Remember, this is the third question line. Why is it that when I think I'm right, you think I'm intolerant, but when you think you're right, you're just right? And that's the world we live in right now, right? They're so right and you're so wrong, so you're intolerant. It's like, but
Am I missing?
we're missing something. I think we both think we're right. We're just, yeah. Next one. All right, so the miracles in the Bibles prove it's a myth. And I have heard this.
What do you mean by it?
What do you mean by that? Well, that's a good place to start because, believe it or not, miracles, myth, and prove are not necessarily, they don't necessarily mean the same thing that we mean.
Right.
Because you can't actually prove anything's a myth. If it's a myth, you might not be able to prove it's true, but you can't actually prove a myth. It's impossible. It's impossible.
So, well, let's go back to, because he talks about you're trying to get them to put their cards on the table.
Yep.
So then it's harder to ask questions because, but I thought of one for this one. Do you believe all miracles are myths? So I would be trying to get them
What
to
the-
say, I don't believe in any miracles, or I do believe in miracles. So if they put that on the
Yeah.
table, then you've got something to work with.
Well, and I think then whatever their answer is, I think you have to do a follow-up is what is a miracle? We're going to need to define that because, believe it or not, people are very confused of what that represents. The naturalist would say, well, miracles are impossible because they violate the natural laws. And we'll say, yeah, of course they do. They're supernatural events. Of course they violate the natural laws. So we're both in complete agreement of what a miracle is. Now the question is, are they possible? And that's where you have to ask them questions that might be perceived as something supernatural. I mean, our ability to just cognitively think is pretty amazing.
Okay, what about if they say, okay, miracles like Jesus walked on water.
I would say something, well, what's the problem with that?
You don't know that happened.
Uh,
How do you know that happened?
How do you know
you don't
that it
know that it
didn't
didn't
happen?
happen.
How do you know that it didn't happen?
We have an historical account. When it comes down to the Bible, when they start challenging individual stories of the Bible, you have to go back a few notches and start establishing the validity of the Bible. Unless they believe in the validity of the Bible, these conversations are just back and forth.
Yeah.
So what would make you believe the Bible? Or what makes, or what, or why?
They don't believe the Bible. That
It's
sounds like stupid.
one you probably established. Is there anything in the past that is just based on account of somebody else that you can believe? So at least you can get a basis whether they would take historical evidence.
Yeah, that the history path is a good one.
Because there's a lot of things that happened in the past. We haven't witnessed it personally, but there's things
You
that
believe it.
recorded that you believe it.
That's actually, I think that's probably a good
Are you trying to
tack.
get them to put
Get them
it
where
That you can believe something
'cause-
you haven't
'cause
seen.
I've seen somebody that's being really. It's the guy that's the guy that walked out. What's his name? He's being That's one of those. Stop wasting your time because no matter what evidence you give him, he's not gonna take it.
What's his name? That walked out of the
The guy that walked out on the debate.
debate. What's his name?
I forgot his
Delahante.
Delahante. Because it's
Yeah,
like
so, I mean, we're talking about an atheist named, I can't think what his first name is now, Delahante is his last name. It was very prominent earlier, late last year, he was debating every Christian that he could get, and then he got someone that gave him the same medicine that he gives, and he got up and walked out of the debate. And since then
I couldn't take it.
and since then it was
It's been radio silence since then.
yeah, well, he started resurfacing again recently, but they usually can't take their own medicine. Truth is truth. I mean, you can aggressively as you want tell me the truth, and if it's the truth, well,
But,
so be it.
Most of the Christians that he debated early on were just too nice and not gonna go down his level.
But I think techniques like this where you make them make assertions and then they've made them and I can't go back on it. But it takes a lot of practice to be able to do this. And it's not one question, it's going to be 4 or 5 questions. So you kind of have to think, I know what the answer of this is and I want him to say this. If he doesn't say this, you have to redirect, right?
No, even with the statement, the miracles in the Bible is that one thing you establish
Which one?
first. Would you, Would you,
What miracle are
you might want to ask them if they would believe other miracles that's not in the Bible. So at least you establish whether they would believe miracles or not.
No, I
'Cause-
don't.
So if it's not, then
Okay, so his first take is that, how did you come to that conclusion? Because he wants them to clarify what in that question are they really having a problem with? Is it the miracles,
Is it
or is it the miracles in the Bible, or is everything in the Bible a myth? I mean, you got to have you have to shrink
Well,
yeah,
it's a big
the topic, and that's really what the question's about. Let's shrink the subject so we can be sure that we're
the
addressing.
issue.
So what he says is the professor has probably assumed, because he took this out of his dialogue between a student and a professor, assumed that because he's a naturalistic philosophy that miracles are impossible. And a lot of people, naturalists, miracles are
Reject all
impossible.
miracles.
So you're going to have to drill down. And I think what Joy's saying, I think, what historical record are you going to accept? Because if I have to see it, then all history is a wash. So you have to put history on the table, that I'll accept.
What did you say in there?
Since modern day science is based on naturalistic philosophy, he thinks that science has proved instead of assumed there are no miracles. Since science can only measure the natural world, it cannot eliminate, even in principle, the possibility of events that are supernatural, which is true. Science can't disprove supernatural things because by its very
It's outside
definition,
it's
it can't
natural.
actually.
It's outside natural.
Out of natural. So what do you say to this guy?
So the professor has made what's known as a categorical error. Follow up any claim that science has proved miracles don't happen by asking, would you explain how the methods of science can disprove the supernatural? So you might have to say that a little different for an
It's kind of
ordinary
like a hot
person.
air
but-
conversation.
Well, I think, can you, I would have probably, I think knowing what I know now, I would ask them, what can't science prove?
Proof.
Or disprove? Because they have to understand that first, and if they say science can prove everything, then you can go down the J.P.
hot air.
Moreland path, right?
hot air
Where you point out that
Which of those can you prove with
okay,
your
so if you
scientific?
can't see it with your five senses, you can't do science on it. And your thoughts, no matter what you're saying, if you give opinion, it's not based on your five senses. So you've already violated that concept.
Like
But-
that conversation on the consciousness is like, yeah, you can measure all the electrical activity in your brain and all that, but that doesn't measure what you think.
But yeah, she was watching I don't know which guy it was saying that I can look at your brain and I can tell you scientists can tell us all kinds of things
The
about your
number of
brain.
neurons you have in there, the
Things
electrical
that you don't know.
signals.
But what they can't tell you is what you think.
What do you think?
No matter how much they study your brain, they will never be able to determine what you're thinking. They can only tell you what is being used for the thinking, right? The actual cells and neurons. Yet we know there's something more than that physical brain. There's more to it, but they can't explain that. And that's a real strong argument for the existence of God. The fact that no matter what science does, it can't tell what you're thinking. It can only see the byproducts and the effects, right?
What it does when you're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, you can watch the activity in your brain when you're got stimuli. It's amazing, but they can't tell you what it is, and they actually can't tell you what stimulant it is, because actually fear and excitement look exactly the same in the brain. So your euphoria versus dread in the brain, the firing looks very similar. Okay. Jesus was a good man and a prophet, but he wasn't God or the only Savior. Again, there's a lot in that claim, so you're going to have to start with probably Columbo number 2. How did you come to that conclusion?
Conclusion.
It's a little easier than
Yeah.
the miracles.
Yeah. How did you come up with that conclusion?
So what made you say that he's a good man and a prophet? And then because the thing is, you can, whatever he said, it's like,
You can't be a good man and a liar at the same time.
You can't believe that Jesus is good and a prophet, and he said something, he claimed something.
No, like I said, you can't be a good man and a liar at the same time.
Yeah, he claimed something. He claimed that he is God. So they probably don't know that Jesus claimed that he is
He's
God.
God.
So you can't be a good and then lying at the same time, or you're either crazy, he's crazy, or he's a good man and he's God. He's God.
Yeah,
You cannot accept this part and not that part.
Yeah, the way C.S. Lewis put it, I can always remember. Jesus is either a liar, a lunatic, or Lord. And he either lied, he was crazy, so he said
crazy.
things
He
that
said
are,
he's God.
or he really is who he said he was.
He was.
And you have to decide which is he. But if you call him good, he can't be the first two. He can't be crazy and he can't be
Yeah.
a liar if you call him good. That's the reason Jesus himself challenges when someone can say,
You call me good.
calls him good and
teacher.
good teacher, and he said, "Well, why do you call me good? Only God is good," inferring that he's
If you're calling me
Me good, then I must be
are
God.
You're
well, you're
conceding acknowledging that I am God.
well, 'cause he's talking to Pharisee in that
Yeah,
particular
yeah.
story, right?
To me, that question sounds disingenuous because it seems to me they're only trying to get to the fact that he isn't the only Savior. Because that's what I find more people. He's not the only way. He's
Yeah.
not. So it seems like they're just throwing in the first
To-
part.
yeah,
That's the way
to
I
make you
see
feel
it.
good.
Concession.
But I could be wrong.
No, I think you're
And
right.
let's ask questions.
If you really don't believe the second part, you don't think he's a good man or a prophet. You're trying to give a concession.
Yes.
They give you
That's
like a
the
little
way-
bit of something, so you shut up.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, you're okay too. Like, you're okay too.
But actually, I think if you wanted to go after this one, I would focus on the first part first and make them.
Well, that's true.
So why do you think he's a good man?
Yeah.
What makes you say that? Because if they put a piece on the table, then now you got it.
Then you got
To
something.
work with.
I mean, if you're a prophet, that means God is speaking through you. Okay, if you actually really put those two on the table, now I have a lot to work with.
Because if God speak through him and he said he's God,
Yes.
Then even if their motive is to kind of make you shut up because it's like, oh, every way is good. You can end up at the same place even if you take this way and you're taking that way. We all end up at the same place. Still.
But I think that's kind of the thing with this idea of putting the chess pieces on the board. If they've given you something,
Yes.
make them clarify it in such a way that it really supports the topic.
support your case.
Yes, don't let that go so easily. What he said is, how could Jesus be a good man or a prophet, but be mistaken about his own identity and purpose? Which is
Only
true.
God and only Savior.
Well, if someone says this, they probably haven't read the Bible.
Yeah,
Okay, because
probably.
you probably don't know the story.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those interviews. Then when the street interviews, when they says, "Oh, really? He claimed to be God." They never know. They just spouting slogans. That's your delivery.
Well, it's probably my delivery. So, if Jesus was wrong about his frequent claims that he is a unique means of salvation, it then becomes difficult to call him a good man and a prophet or a wise religious teacher, right? If Jesus was not correct, then he was lying or deeply deceived, qualities we would never use to describe a good man or a godly prophet. So yeah, I think I would reinforce the good or the
The good and the
prophet
prophet.
before going after the claim that I disagree with. I think sometimes getting good agreement is a good place to start. But you probably have to do it without a smile on your face. But then, yeah, then I think you can go after, was he God or only salvation? And then I think you have to ask the universal question. It's like, well, do you think all religions are the same? And go down that path of describing to them why they can't all be the same.
We can all be wrong,
They all
but we
make
can't all be right.
exclusive claims, so they can't all be exclusively right.
Yeah.
By definition, if you're exclusive, you're calling everybody else wrong. So if they believe they're right and everybody else is wrong, then not everybody can be right.
See, I guess the problem lies on like Christians are more on to share what we have than other religions. I guess we kind of like more aggressive in sharing or proselyting, whatever.
Well, I wish we actually were, but
Well, but it's more than
That's true.
It's more. There's a lot of us that not doing anything, but there's also a lot that are zealous to take it out there. Compared to like Hindu, nobody tries to talk to me about their faith, convincing me that they're true and I convert to them. None of that. It's only Christian that does that.
and there's a reason why Christians
Well, we got asked to do
do
it.
that. Well, one way we have
part of
the
our
commissions from
commission.
our Lord, but if I know I'm right, well, actually, I heard a real good example about this. It's like if
Right.
if I see people getting into a car and I know the brakes are out, am I not going to go and try to convince them to get out of the car? I mean, to let them go is hateful, really. And so as Christians, we believe that there's only one way, so we want to tell people. We're not forcing anybody to believe, but we are sharing our belief because we think the consequences of not believing is so significant. We show love through our concern. To call us hateful, it's actually the opposite. It'd be better for me to sit by my pool and have a Coca-Cola, but I'm going to go out and share with you and risk you screaming at me or hitting me or doing worse to me because I know the consequence is bad. That's actually
That's actually one of those words that I know Cliff and the banana guy, when they're sharing out there in the open, would say like, I do
care
this because I care. I wouldn't do this if I don't care.
yeah.
Because they calm the people down, actually.
Well, yeah, you're getting abused. Why would I?
Yeah,
Why would I willfully
why
go
should
get
I
abused unless I
abused?
actually cared for the person I'm talking to? No. I mean,
It actually calmed them down. Those that are really nasty, they would tell them like, I don't have to go here. I don't like this, but I have to do this because I'm called to do this.
And I care.
this is what God has asked me to do. All right. A fetus may be a human being, but it's not a person. We kind of ended last time on this one, and this is the high
What
topic.
is a person?
What? Yeah. What is a person?
Laid on the table.
What's-
Human being, so that's good.
They already put something there that they're a human being.
Fetus are human being. They already put that
They
on the
already
table.
put something on the table.
So
What is a person?
I might not even go there to start with. I might start with the human being again.
Yeah,
So
human being.
So if they're a human
is
being,
it okay to kill another human being?
Yeah.
I think we're talking about abortion. Obviously, that's what this is about. I might want them to identify their moral standard.
Mm-hmm.
They might not, but you can come back and say, to me, if they say something you don't agree, you do the alternative type questions. Like, well, I might not say it that way. I don't know that I agree. I would say something more like killing another human being is wrong. Period. And then come back and it's like, well, is there a difference between a human being and a person? Yeah, I don't.
because I literally don't understand.
I don't know the difference. Can you
I
enlighten
really
me?
don't understand even the statement that they not a person, so what's the difference really? I want to know where they're coming from.
Is a human being not a person?
Yeah. Well, this is an argument that I've heard, but I've heard they can't fill it out because it's like, okay, so it's not a person because they can't take care of themselves. It's like, well, there are a lot of people that
Are
are
old people that can
considered,
take care of themselves?
well, old people,
Then you just kill them?
injured people,
Can you-
Watch it.
people under anesthesia.
sleeping, somebody.
Well, you have handicapped people that can't take care of themselves.
babies.
So they
Babies.
a newborn baby, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
No,
So
that,
are they
I-
not
I-
persons?
I would even go to the newborn babies. A 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Well, but
Do you think they can
but
take care of themselves?
the point is taking care of themselves. If that's the criteria, that opens up a category I don't think they want to go down.
Yeah, they don't.
So they're probably going to go someplace else, and it's like, well,
yeah.
maybe they'll say they're not conscious. They're not conscious yet.
Are sleeping people? Qualified
Sleeping
for that?
people, people that are under anesthesia, and what makes you think they're not conscious?
Yeah. What makes you think that they're not conscious?
What
Yep.
do you get, Rick?
Yeah, we can measure brain activity of babies in the womb,
Yeah.
and we can give them stimuli and they move
And
away
they-
from stimuli. That's
they
consciousness.
react.
So what is the point at which they become a person is you'd want them to clarify, and then you work on whatever that point is.
Seventh-day Adventists has a different.
Plus breathing, right?
Seventh-day Adventists think that if you haven't taken your first breath, you're not a person. You're not a person. You're not a human being.
Well, they
So they do abortions because that child, that baby inside the womb, has not taken their first breath, so they're not a living soul.
yeah. So the
So
soul
once
the
they
soul enters the
come
body
out-
with the first breath is the concept.
That's their concept.
Which I don't know where that's based on.
Well,
And
that's the only one.
I understand.
So,
But they take oxygen by mouths too.
yeah, there's changes.
No, but your
No,
own breath. Your
It-
own breath. Because your breath comes from God, and then when you die, your breath goes back to God. That's their concept.
They're using the breath of life analogy, and
But the funny thing is, I used that to one of my coworker that's 70 Adventist because she made a comment like, I can't believe these people are aborting babies. It's like, do you know that 70 Adventists abort babies? She didn't know. I said, they haven't taken their first breath. That's why Luma Linda is like doing abortions, lots of abortions.
yeah, a lot of them.
A baby, a spirit in the womb, operating at the same time, and not just a spirit,
Well,
spirit.
Yeah,
That's
Still
true.
this-
that's true.
That's true.
That's a
That's
great
biblical.
story, actually. That I like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, like it says like there's already like
There-
the
there-
spirit, like yeah. They do. But,
But
Well, and even the story of Esau and Jacob.
oh yeah.
they
You know,
wrestle.
they're wrestling in the womb
Yeah.
already. They have awareness. They have personhood because they're uniquely person.
Anyways,
So-
so that's 7 Adventists.
Yeah.
I think these
Side
days
topic.
that we're gonna run into more, it's a woman's right.
Yeah.
That's the next one that they would pull.
That's.
Well, that's a pretty common one. That
Yeah, you shouldn't
tell people what to do with their own body.
Their own body.
But
That's what they say.
we killed that one during COVID.
Well, that's true.
You know, when they started forcing you to have immunizations or wear a mask or not go out, they're telling you what you can do with your body. And so, and they're medically telling you what you can do with your body.
Follow all the directions of COVID, I guess you could ask them that.
Yeah.
But and it's even beyond that. We let the government decide what's illegal and what's legal. Cocaine's illegal in America, so they're telling you what you can do with your body. I mean, there are many things that tell you what you can do with
They
your
do,
body.
and that's
If I
what-
work for,
You
Well,
can't drive when you're drunk.
I
How's
can't
that?
drive when I'm drunk. I shouldn't. and
No, but they're gonna put you in jail.
Yep. Well, another
They
one,
got you.
I needed to go to Nigeria a few years ago. I had to get like 29 immunizations before I
No
could go.
choice.
I had no choice, okay? And, you know,
wanna go?
if I
You take it.
want that, then I have to do what they tell me. They're telling me what I can do with my body. And so I think that argument is it's a false claim
Yes.
because they haven't thought it through, because if that was true, then we would not have any health controls of any sort. And require immunizations. That's telling you what you can do with your body. That's so. Let's see what he said in this question. So they're claiming there is a moral relevant difference between unborn child and a toddler that justifies killing one over the other. So you really got to push that. There's a difference. They must defend, not just assert. So again, they make an assertion, make them prove their assertion, or at least define it clearly. And if they offer a list of qualities for personhood, ask where they get that list from. What if someone else's list has a certain skin color as a requirement for personhood? Then what would happen? Because that did happen in many countries. Okay, and we all agree that's wrong.
Even the gender part.
Even gender, yeah. Women used to be considered property, not person.
No, how about this? Women gets like, if it's a baby girl, no. Abort. Or leave them out.
Let them out. Yeah, let
Just-
them out to die.
To die.
So I think his last question is probably the best of it. It's who gets to make the list that decides which humans are protected as persons and which are not.
That's true.
But
Who were the most powerful?
I mean, the people that want equal rights for all are the ones that usually scream for abortion, yet they're violating
They're
their
saying
own
that
tenets.
you're imposing you're limiting my rights on my body, but actually you're
Well, everybody has they're following some list of qualifications that give them the right to do whatever they're doing. Yeah.
which violate the right of others.
There's one more question, I think. The problem of evil, obviously.
Problem of evil.
How can God exist when there's so much evil in the world? Let's just read what he had to
What
say.
makes evil?
Well,
Define evil. What
that's
do you mean by
a
evil?
good place to start. Well, we kind of did that when we did our class, because we lump everything that we perceive as bad as evil.
No,
And-
generally evil is like what's bad for me.
Yeah, it's very selfish. It's very selfish. Because what's evil for you might not be evil for the other person,
That's
right?
true.
Generally, like I said, if you ask somebody to define it, it's usually what's bad for me.
That's true.
Well, that's really what they mean. They might not be what they say, but all right. So you can ask, but if there is no God, then how can we call anything evil in the first place? That's the basis or standard for the assertion, which they don't have any. I've only heard one good argument, and it wasn't that good. The existence of evil assumes an objective standard, a scoring system of some sorts, that must be in place to distinguish whether there's something good or something bad, good from evil. But there is no way to account for the standard of objective good, the moral rules that are violated by people who commit the evil that we're talking about, without the existence of a moral rule maker, i.e., God. How do we make sense of the difference between good and evil if there is no God? That's a question that is valid to ask. Now, like I said, the only argument I've ever heard that really had a chance was Sam Harris's human flourishing argument, where, we choose good and bad based on what's best for the community. But,
It's not true.
but it doesn't work, and we have plenty of examples in history that didn't work that way.
Some people do that. Majority of people, I would grant him that. There are some people that would
Prioritize the greater good.
yeah, the greater good. Like the old, remember the people in the past, American past. I mean,
They would
these
sacrifice.
are rich people that sacrifice to do the good.
Agreed.
Okay, there's people that would do that, and not necessarily like fearing God. But the problem is majority don't. Majority is what's good for me. That's
That's the
I don't care
natural
what's good
MO.
for you, but what's good for me.
Well, and not to insult the founding fathers or anything, but each one of their visions of of right and wrong would not necessarily have been what I would have wanted, unless it's in line with what God wants.
Well,
Right? The God standard is the reason what they did made sense. I often use Mother Teresa. I mean, I'm sure she's an amazing lady, but she believed in equity. Okay, I don't believe in that because I believe everybody's made different, and God has given you things to steward for a purpose. If I redistribute it, there's certain people that can't handle it. They're going to end up exactly where they started. And when do you stop? So her concept I wouldn't accept. So I don't think any human, no matter how wonderful they are, and as far as I know, she was a wonderful human, would actually define it properly. It wouldn't give a standard that's workable, because humans always do it from their own perspective, and we don't have a broad enough perspective. When I take my model and move it to a different place with a different group of people with different cultural norms, it won't work. It's only God's standard that can move from culture to culture and still
it
work.
Still work, yeah.
Because his
He
Well,
knows.
yeah, example, like child labor. Okay, in other country, that's fine.
Yeah.
Over here, you're abusing
can-
your child. It's fine in other country.
Yeah, you have
And
two
there's
hands
nothing
that
wrong
can
with
work
that
and
over
move.
there.
And
Over
you
there.
make money.
well, and more
using
importantly,
those hands.
the children
It
want
is.
to work in these countries because it's the only way you
You
can.
send you send them.
You work or die, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's.
No, like young kids would get sent to be a maid.
It's better than the alternative.
Well, yeah, better than not eating.
Yeah. But our sensibilities and our culture is like so aghast by that. But they
No,
get
it's
to,
a
they get to
normal
eat and
thing.
they live in a better place. It's actually better for
Yeah.
them.
And then they have extra money to send to their
And
parents.
there's no social safety net. We've gotten so used to our social safety net in the Western cultures, we forget that most of the world doesn't have such things. And
Majority.
yeah, the vast
Majority.
majority of the world doesn't have such things, and in fact, wouldn't work. Doesn't work here either, but it wouldn't work because people tend to exploit a system, and it unfortunately often reduces the incentive to make your life better.
Okay, like when I work overseas, it's like our benefits is not the same as the benefits of the people
local.
there. And it's fine. We accepted that terms.
Well, because in that culture, that's what it is.
You're a
They really are
second-class
second-class
You're a
citizens.
second-class citizen. You came there on your own volition, then you're a second-class citizen. It's
It
fine.
is what it is.
But I
And
think,
there's nothing is being violated, you know?
yeah, the
You agree
point
to
is,
the terms.
what is right and wrong within those cultures is different. And our version is not better than theirs unless our standard is what God's standard would be. Because God's standard is the only one that actually goes cross-cultural and
cross-cultural.
works. I couldn't take the standard out of Singapore and Malaysia and put it in America. It would not work. It just wouldn't work.
It's probably better.
It might work better. I'm not
It's probably
gonna.
better.
I'm
They
not gonna
don't
go
have no
there.
social problem like we do.
What if they say like killing, war, earthquake,
Natural evil.
Natural.
human
Trafficking. Well, you're kind of gone all over the place. Earthquake is natural.
Natural.
And if you're a naturalist, you can't call it evil because it's just
It's
the
just-
world
Just the way it
doing
is.
what it does. So don't blame God. And if you're a God-fearer, you have to recognize that that's just
Keep us a-
how the world works.
Give us a pretty harsh answer to that one. It's like, you know that place is prone to earthquake and you live there. So
Why are you
expect-
surprised?
Why are you surprised that there's earthquake?
I mean, I live
Like in
in
Florida.
I live in Texas. Every 5 years we get a significant hurricane, and I act like I'm surprised. And I know it. If I didn't want to be where the hurricane was, maybe
Then
I
don't
should go
live there.
someplace else.
And blame God.
Well, you live in the upper Midwest in Nebraska, they have tornadoes. If I don't like tornadoes, then
Don't
maybe
live
don't live
out.
there. You know, I mean, pick whatever it is. It's not like we don't know these natural disasters happen. Areas are prone to flooding. Well, yeah, they're prone to flooding. And
They're gonna flood.
I put my house there and I act like I'm shocked when it
Shocked when it
floods.
floods.
And I'm not saying these natural things are bad. I feel sorry for the people that are caught up in it. But it's not evil because we're very aware that they happen. And we actually choose to put ourselves in
You took the
that
risk.
situation. We're putting ourselves at risk. So it's not evil. We're aware. It's not like I mean, a meteor falling from the sky, that's one I might not predict, but everything
still
else,
possible.
we were fairly predictable. When it comes down to free will, then it's the free will of the person. And yeah, things like human trafficking I find repulsive. But the people that are choosing to do it are what is repulsive. And do I understand? No.
No, but the thing though, if there's no God, if there's no God, why do you think it's evil? It's just okay to them. There's no standard. So what makes if the strong eating the weak? That's the natural
Survival of the fittest.
effect. It's like, you're weak, I'll take advantage of you. I don't care of you.
The only
Because
reason-
the only thing is I'm strong, I'm gonna eat you.
Well, the only reason we get out of better shape of that is because we have the standard of God that says all men are equal.
Yeah.
It has value in God's eyes.
Well, I think it's also a good opportunity to point out the difference between world religions if you get into this conversation. It's like, show me the world religion that values the individual
The individual.
universally. There's only one. I mean, even Judaism, although they were told to do so,
They didn't
did
do it.
not. The application of Judaism doesn't value anybody outside of the
They
club.
still have the members of the club and those that are not.
Well, that's just how they applied. That's what it ends up. That's the reason they failed. But
Compared to
Islam doesn't value
Christianity-
anybody that's not a member of the club.
In Christianity, we're called even those that we don't like.
Where we're
Love those
told
that we
to
don't like.
go further. We're told to pray to God to bless
How
people
about
we
bless
don't
those
like.
that persecute you?
So that's a true difference in religions that comes out in the problem of evil, because no religion would call the things that you're calling evil if it happened to somebody outside of their group. They wouldn't care.
Yeah.
It's really only Christianity that can look across the ocean to a
And
group
say that's
that's
evil.
completely different than us and say that's terrible what happened to them. I would not call it evil, but it's terrible. I can say it's terrible. I feel for them. I have empathy for their circumstance.
If they get all killed, that's evil.
Well, the person that did it is evil.
Is evil.
Yeah, that action is evil.
The action is evil.
Like what Hitler did is evil.
Yes. Yeah, the actions of humans can be evil, where the actions of the universe is just natural, right? Let me see how we're doing on time. Maybe I better skip.
3 o'clock. 2:55.
And the funny thing
We
about
did
those
6
evil-
questions in an
No,
hour?
no, and the funny thing about the question about like those natural disasters and stuff like that, if you don't believe that there's God, then why are you trying to ask God to, if He's God, if He's good God, He should stop those?
Well,
It's like, you said there's no God, and then you're blaming Him for the disasters, and if He's good, He should stop that.
well, like most people, including Christians, we often try to define God in our terms instead of the way God defines God. We can't understand God, but yeah, I don't believe in the God that you're describing. I probably wouldn't like either. That's not the God that I worship. You don't get to define what God chooses to do because He's God, right? He made everything. He actually gets to choose how it works. I don't have to completely understand, but I can't blame someone if I don't believe in Him. So by blaming Him, you're actually acknowledging that
Acknowledging
He
that He exists.
you're just saying you don't like Him.
Yeah.
Okay, noted. But last time I
But
checked,
don't-
if He's really God,
He
it
doesn't
doesn't
care
matter
about
if
your
you like Him
opinion.
or not. I wanted to read this narrative. It's on page 62 of the book that kind of goes along with what's going on. This was a teacher and a student narrative, and it says, "Teacher, okay, let's start today's lesson with a quick review. Yesterday I talked about homology, how different organisms show remarkable similarity in their structure of some of their body parts. Homologous features such as vertebrate limbs shown in your textbook, which they show all the little bones are similar, right? Provide us with some of our best evidence that living things have evolved from common ancestors." Student raises his hand. I know you went over this yesterday, but I'm still confused. How do we know whether features are homologous, which is homologous, sorry. Teacher, well, if you look at vertebrate limbs, you can see that even though they're adapted to perform different functions, their bone patterns are structurally similar. Student, but you told us yesterday that even though an octopus eye is structurally similar to the human eye, the two are not homologous. Homologous. I can't pronounce it. So the student's homologous. So he said one thing and now he's saying the different. And the teacher says that's correct. Octopus eyes and human eyes are not homologous because their common ancestor did not have an eye.
Oh my gosh,
Student.
it's crazy.
So regardless of similarity, features are not homologous unless they are inherited from a common ancestor. Teacher, yes. Now you're catching on. Student, well, actually, I'm still confused. I know I'm still confused. You say homologous features provide some of our best evidence for common ancestry, but before we can tell whether feature is homologous, we have to know whether they came from a common ancestor, how do you know that? Teacher says, that's right. And the student says, I must be missing something. It sounds like you're saying that we know features are derived from a common ancestor because we've derived them from a common ancestor. Isn't that circular reasoning? And it is, right?
It is.
I always
chicken
like
and an egg.
the chicken and the egg.
Yeah, we read that.
Well, because they believe it, so therefore it is, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes the best way to disagree with someone is not to face the issue head on, but to use an indirect approach, offer alternatives, and invite principled response. Good luck with that. But he has some kind of form questions that we can try to reformulate. So you've heard something you don't really agree with, to say, well, let me suggest an alternative and tell me if it isn't an improvement. Then you can tell me why you think your alternative is better. I don't know if I do the improvement part, but yeah, it's like, oh, okay, I've heard what you had to say, but I think I'd use that evidence and come to a different conclusion. What's wrong with what I'm thinking, right?
No, but the way he's saying it is very neutral. It's not aggressive. The way if you say it that way,
Yep.
you're not attacking them, you're not belittling them, you're not, that's like, even if you're suggesting something.
But it gives you an opportunity to share
Well, tell me.
your alternative.
Yeah.
And
Tell me if
then
you
we
think
can get into what matches the evidence best.
Improvement or yours is still better.
Yep.
So,
Second one, I wouldn't characterize it that way. Here's what I think may be a better or more accurate way of looking at it. A little more aggressive.
a little more aggressive.
I like this one. This is probably more me. I wouldn't characterize it that way. I actually think I've used that a few times. Number 3 is, have you thought about or considered another alternative?
That's easier to say.
That's
easier to say.
I actually like
That's
that
way
one.
neutral.
I like the first one, but
The
I
third
wouldn't
one.
be able to say it.
No, but I actually think the third one is better.
very
It's like,
neutral
have you ever
and
thought of any
other
potential answer,
Yeah.
right? Because if
Yeah.
they haven't, then, well, can I share an alternative that I know of?
I like the word consider, I've used that with people. Have you considered that? And it's still very respectful, and they seem to.
Well, you're absolutely right, Connie, because you're giving some credit to their
Yeah, their
opinion,
thoughts, yes.
and you're asking
Completely.
them to give the same credit back to you,
Yeah.
so we can be on even ground for the conversation. Next is, I don't think that's going to work, and here's why. Oof, that might be poking it, but there's a time for that.
There's a time for that, and there's personalities that actually works better.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm talking within the family, I'm going there, right? Because that's how we
For
go.
us, oh yeah.
That's how we go.
that works.
The soft approaches won't work for the Filipinos.
They're saying, I don't think that's going to
here's why. But the way you say it, like, here's why, it's kind of like you're not.
No,
No,
you're
no,
not. You're
I
not.
have a reason why I don't think it works. It's,
Well, it's better than what you normally do with me. Is I don't believe
I don't
you.
believe you.
Like, what?
Why? There's so, it's
You haven't
just,
given
I
me
don't
a
believe you,
reason.
period.
I'm not sure I agree with the way you put that. What about this? I actually love that. I don't think I'd ever use it,
I like
but I like it because it's like, no, I don't think I agree with you, and let me put it a different way and see if we can agree.
No, but you're not like putting it like you're stupid, you know? You're
No,
like,
I like it.
I'm not sure it's a good phraseology to say.
Well, I think that look through his
Like this, I don't agree with you.
the first one is, let me suggest, very soft. The second one is, here's what I think.
It's the softer that
Soft.
I don't. It's the softer one that I don't think that's gonna work.
Yeah, no,
The
but
second one.
this is what I think. Have you considered? Here's why I don't agree with you. These are not aggressive.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I agree with you. Can I put it a different way? And actually, we do this in regular business conversations, or someone will say something to you, and you're like, well, I don't know that I completely agree with it. Can I put it a different way? And then we can massage it back and forth a little bit till we're using language we both agree. So why not in normal conversations? Don't we do it that way?
Yeah.
I mean, because we should not be scared, because truth is truth, right? We're not scared of other people's opinions. So this approach shows respect to the person you disagree with, and once you understand their viewpoint, you can ask, do you mind if I ask a couple of questions about what you've told me? You know, what did you mean by that? How did you come to that conclusion? And would you consider an alternative? Are you open? You know, are you receptive? Because if they're not reasonable, you're...
Looking at another angle.
Yep. I mean, are you going to be reasonable is really what he's talking about. And yeah, you open up the opportunity where you're agreeing to disagree, and that what are you waiting? And you want to keep yourself in the driver's part. So remember, the person who asks the question controls the conversation, and that's really the key part of what we've been learning. Let's go to page 64. This is
Wasn't I'm a little curious. I'm just curious, help me out, because I'm trying to understand.
read it loud enough that everybody can hear. Read it.
Two basic execution of the Columbo tactic. The first approach is the apparently harmless method of Columbo himself, halting, head scratching, and bubbling. You can use a number of phrases to introduce questions that soften your challenge, such as, I'm just curious, help me out because I'm trying to understand you with this. I'm a little confused or on something. Maybe you can clear this up to me, for me. Something about this thing bothers me. Maybe I'm missing something.
I like the E. That's one of my favorite ones. There's something about this just bothers me. Can we work that out? And then the second approach is more aggressive. It's the confrontational, where you're asking questions like a lawyer does, when the lawyer already knows what the answer is going to be, right? The lawyers always ask leading questions, and they know what they want you to say. That's the reason they've asked the question. And obviously that's a more aggressive approach than the bumbling fool approach is disarming, but it doesn't work with everybody, right? If the person has the wrong personality, that's going to actually turn them off. So you got to adapt based on the person you're communicating with. Just go down a little bit. Go down right there. So, Columbo 3, which is what we've been learning in session 3, is kind of a 3-step process. Anticipate what objections they're going to have. That means we have to practice then once you've had an interaction, you go away and you reflect. If they've given you new information that you don't know how to deal with, you go and you think about it, you go research it.
How should I have handled
How
this?
should I have handled it? And then you practice in the car or with others, like what we've been doing, so that you're prepared the next time. His approach is, that conversation's over.
It's over.
Learn from it, and then you're prepared for the next one. Don't be scared of the conversation. This is not a winning or losing strategy. This is always search for truth, information gathering, and then learn from what happens. All right. Page 66. Ambassador skills. The advantage to using Columbo number 3 is not having to assert something you want someone else to believe in. You aren't taking the burden of proof on yourself. Instead, your questions make the point for you. This is accomplishing your goal in a different way, often much more powerfully. And I think that's... Where'd you go?
I'm just confused where you're at. What page was it?
One back. Yeah, that's...
This one?
That was the one I was on. No, I don't think that's
Set
it either.
ambassador skills.
Page 60, 68. Sorry, I think I skipped one. Yep, that's my fault.
68. This one.
That one. So, sorry, I'm just trying to get us on time. But I think the key is we have been taught, and I actually taught it in the last class, that we can get the information, we can share it, right? What Kilkel's telling us is the more effective way is to lead them with questions so they make the assertions you're looking for. And then once we get to a point, then I can share my information. Instead of starting with the sharing information.
Well, yeah, because
No, well,
when you start there, you said, I don't agree with you.
Yep.
That's gonna be the answer there.
It's probably more figuring out what they know already, so you don't have to repeat that information, and where their understanding is. So, like you said, it's like you share what's necessary and you avoid landmines.
Yep. No, I think you have the universe in front of you, and the idea is shrinking
Shrink
it
it
down
down to address the
to a
specific-
manageable conversation. You've identified any history that they have that's troublesome. You've defined terms so we can talk
We
the
can
same
talk the same
language.
language.
And you're talking about a specific topic that they have a problem with. And you don't, we always want to talk about what we want to talk about, but if we're having a conversation, it really should be what they have trouble with. If we want to lead them to Christ, lead them to truth, we have to take them where they need to go, not where we want to go. And I think that's really
And
important.
the other thing too is just, I think the information gathering gives you things to work with, things that they already adhere to, that you both agree on. So you can use that to your advantage.
And you get to see the flaws in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You pick up on some of the flaws that you can address later.
Which is where we have to get the education part, though, so we can recognize the flaws. The other thing he talked about is how to defend against Columbo, right? And well, because this is not a Christian technique. This is a universal conversational, and it can be very manipulative. So what he told us is if they're asking us Columbo number 1, no problem. You know, what do you mean by that? I'm more than willing to share why I believe what I believe. How did I come to that conclusion? Well, let's talk about the evidence that have convinced me. We should know why we believe what we believe, and
why we believe it.
so we shouldn't. People ask us those questions. That gives us the green light to actually
The
share it
door's
with them.
open.
Number 3, if they are using questions and you recognize that they have an ulterior motive, you should just stop it. That's what his suggestion was. Just say, hey, you know, it seems like you're trying to make a point here, and I'm getting a little confused. Why don't you just
You
tell
just make
me
the
what it
point.
is you want to tell me, and then I'll think about it, and we can talk about it some other time. And I think that's completely okay. If someone does that to you, you should do it the same way. It's like, no, okay, this is my point, and then let's set up a time to talk about it again. And you have to be willing to let people off the hook at a certain point. And I think I don't remember if he did this in the video or not, but there's the food for thought. It's a page 72. It was with the waitress in Seattle. Did we talk about that last week?
No, no.
Let me read this because it is a really good. He was very assertive in a nice way. So once in a restaurant in Seattle, I got into a chat about religion with the waitress who was serving my table. My general comments were met with an approving nod until I said, when it comes to religion, people believe a lot of foolish things. Then a shadow of disapproval crossed her face. That's oppressive, not letting people believe what they want to believe, she said. Now, much can be said about that simple remark. For example, notice how she felt that just challenging a view was a threat to personal liberty, a forcing of my beliefs on others. I ignored that problem because she actually just had done it to him, right? I ignored that problem, though, and zeroed in on a more fundamental flaw. I asked a simple question, a variation of the first Columbo question. So, are you saying that I'm wrong? That's pretty strong.
Mm-hmm.
She
Oh,
balked.
but then she said, that's oppressive.
It's oppressive. That's a really strong statement.
Statement.
So she balked, and realizing that she was about to commit the same error she'd been accusing me of making, she said, no, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I'm just trying to understand your view. And he said, I chuckled in a good-natured way and said, be honest, admit it. You think I'm wrong. If you don't think I'm wrong, then why are you correcting me? If you do think I'm wrong, then why are you oppressing me? It was clear that she believes some people could be wrong, me in this case.
Yeah.
Like many who espouse this confused sense of tolerance, the waitress couldn't play by her own rules. Mine was a simple question that gently boxed her in. After this, she stammered for a moment and then replied, all religions are basically the same after all. Notice that this comment had little to do with my original question. It was a parry to, the stock retort of some sort.
Slogan.
It's a slogan. But she had made a claim, and now it was her job to defend it. So all religions are basically the same. In what way? I asked. This question, so he basically said, what? How are they the same? This question had a remarkable effect on her. Her jaw fell slack and her face went blank. She didn't know what to say. She'd obviously never looked closely at other religions. If she had, she would have known they're worlds apart. Why would she have made this claim? Well, I suspect she had gotten away with it many times before.
Well, see, the thing that people think that that it's all the same is you're going to go to a better place.
But they don't all believe that.
I know.
That's actually not how they all work.
That's true. Because
Actually, the guy
that's a general belief of people that it's better.
No,
That's a general belief.
Well, at least in the Western world,
Yeah.
maybe. Okay, so this goes on. So consider this, I said. Either Jesus is the Messiah or he isn't, right? And she nodded. So far, so good. If he isn't the Messiah, I continued, then the Christians are wrong. If he is the Messiah, then the Jews are wrong. So one way or the other, somebody's right and somebody's wrong.
That's true.
Everyone can't be right at the same time, can they? After stumbling around a bit, the waitress offered a different diversion. Well, no one can ever know the truth about religion.
And that's very common.
Yes. This is another assertion that should never go unchallenged. So I calmly asked, why would you believe that? The turnabout caught her by surprise. She was used to asking the questions and not answering it. And she wasn't prepared for the role change. I waited patiently, not breaking the silence, which is really important. When there's an awkward silence, let it be awkward. There's a time. I'm not letting her off the hook. Finally, she ventured, but the Bible has been changed and retranslated so many times over the centuries. This is another dodge. It had nothing to do with the issue. Even if the Bible vanished from the face of the earth, some knowledge of God would still be possible. It seemed, at least in principle. But I chose a different tact. Oh, have you actually studied the transmission of ancient documents of the text of the Bible? Woo!
Slap, slap.
Once again, the question stalled her. She couldn't defend her own assertion. No, I've never studied it, she said. This was a remarkable admission, given her confident contention just moments before. But she didn't seem to be the least bit bothered. It would have been impolite to say what I was thinking. Then what are you saying? This is what he was thinking. Then what are you saying if you're sure about something you really know nothing about? So how can you be sure about something you know nothing about? Instead, I simply said, I studied the Bible transmission enough to know that the academic results were in, and there was no reason to believe the Bible had been corrupted in the way that she thought. One by one, her options evaporated. She began to get uncomfortable. I feel like you're backing me into the corner, she complained. I wasn't trying to bully her intellectually, but rather challenge her politely with fair questions. She was beginning to feel trapped because that's what careful questioning does. By eliminating foolish options, it forces a person down the narrow corridor of truth. Note what happened here. I said some people are foolish in their thinking on spiritual matters. And she responded by saying mine was an oppressive view. She then proved my point by serving up her standard menu of muddled challenges. With each claim she made, I responded with a question. She was speechless, not because I was clever, but because I suspect she had never before been challenged to answer for her own claims. I asked why I should swallow any of this, and she complained that she was being cornered. And I thought that was a really good demonstration of kind of everything we've learned so far. But I think the one thing I took from that is Greg Koukl is one of the most mild-mannered guys I've ever listened to, and he's not going to let her off the hook. And I think we need to not let people off the hook until they recognize that they're in a corner, and then we can be gracious. But what we can't let people do is make false claims and then not challenge them. Because too often, someone will change the subject and then we change the subject. Okay, we'll agree to disagree. No, they make an assertion, make them back it up. And if they keep making assertions, make them keep backing it up until they agree that they don't have evidence for their assertions.
Until they come to the point, I thought of things I have no.
Job, yes, Job.
I thought of things that I don't have no clue.
I
But
hope you liked your good tip. This waitress is going.
oh, I understand. Probably, he's a pretty nice guy. But I think the point is, if someone makes an assertion, make them give you proof. If we let them just buy the assertion, then the next time they're going to use that same slogan. What we want to do is affect the world. You affect the world by challenging the norms and making them.
Actually, some people really haven't really put the time, or I've never considered thinking about it. That's the reason they just.
He's just following all the slogans about Christianity and I'm an atheist and this and that.
Until he got challenged. What
and his
you
patient was
believe?
like, what do you believe about that? That's the only question the lady said. It's like, what do I believe? I don't have any. What do I really believe?
He's a medical
And he
doctor,
started
what was an
thinking about
atheist.
it.
Yeah, a cancer patient
And
asked her.
based
"What
on
do you
that
believe?"
question, he searched and he's like, oh, this makes more sense. And now
And
he's
he became a
he's
Christian just for that question. Like, what do you believe?
Well,
Because she was a cancer patient, and he said she's very different. She's not scared to die. She's,
She's
she's
gracious
going
with the
through it,
people
and
and-
yeah, no problem. Like this, going through it with like just a different demeanor compared to other cancer patients. And he asked her why is that? And of course she said about Jesus and all that stuff. And he said, then she asked him, what do you believe? And it's like, I guess I don't have any. And started researching.
but it's such a great example because our job is not to convert people. Our job is not to coerce them. Our job is to encourage them to look for truth, because truth
We'll set you free.
will set you
We'll
free.
set you free.
And I can only be one of the pawns that directs the process. And I
Yeah.
think when we recognize that we are just one of those gardeners, we're just helping to facilitate people to think, it actually takes a lot of pressure off of
Yeah,
us.
it's one of those, the stone on the shoe.
And it's
So
way
you
more
think about
effective because people are put off by the classic evangelist typically. Not always, but typically.
Typical.
Yeah.
But what I can do is I can help lay a foundation, so if one of those people comes into their life, they'll listen.
Well, if you're different, the way you live is one of the thing there. You're out there and you're different from anybody else. And then you already have, somebody would ask you why you're like that.
even a
You don't
random
even have to.
encounter, just asking questions. Because I started my search for truth with a random question. How is it any different? What you believe from the other Christian? One question.
And that's what got her out of the cult, right? Was just the questioning, what's the
What's the
difference?
difference?
So she searched to find out what was the difference and decided she didn't like what she was doing.
I found out things.
The
Like,
truth was
oh,
revealed.
Oh.
But I think as Christians, our main objective is to reveal or to make the truth become evident into people's lives. So that we're going to do it different ways, but we can ask questions that help them find their way. And I think every conversation has to be considered that way. That's the purpose of this, is yes, we have to have knowledge about what it is we believe, because we have to own our own faith. But then we have to be able to ask questions that lead people down the path toward finding the truth for themselves. Because we can't tell somebody truth, because then it's your truth that they believe. It's not the truth that they believe. So I really appreciate this approach because it's my weakness. Alrighty, so well, let's go ahead and close with the prayer, and then next week we'll try session 4. And the next several sessions are particular approaches people have. The suicide will be the one we do next week, which is basically when you see a flaw in somebody's argument, you make it basically kill itself, right? That's the idea. So. Oh no, we're not going to meet next week, are we? It's Father's Day. Okay, so 2 weeks from now. You're welcome to come over. We'll probably have food anyway. But yeah, Father's Day. So, all right. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this time together. Guide us, Lord. Help us to hear your voice so we know what question to ask, because we know we can't do this on our own. We know that you will guide us and give us the right thing to ask at the right moment if we just listen to you. Help us to step away from our normal characters so that we can be more and more like you. And this is a technique you use. You've showed us to us in the Bible. Help us to refine that so that we can be more effective for you. I thank you so much for this fellowship. It's so much fun every week to get together and talk and share. And I pray that we have a great week, and we'll come back together next week or in 2 weeks and share again. We pray this in your name, Lord Jesus. Amen.